The poem Lionheart by Amanda Chong deals with the origins of the country Singapore. During the 14th century, this small but strategically located island earned a new name. According to legend, Sang Nila Utama, a prince, was out on a hunting trip when he caught sight of an animal he had never seen before. He of course spotted the merlion that you see in the photos. Taking it to be a good sign, he founded a city where the animal had been spotted, naming it the Lion City, or Singapura, from the Sanskrit words Simha, which means lion, and Pura, which means city. So the poem deals with the origins of Singapore. It starts by talking about the merlion, an animal which is half fish, half lion. It says, "You came out of the sea, skin dappled scales of sunlight, riding crests, waves of fish in your fists." Now the word "you" is interesting because "you" refers to the merlion in the first instance, but by extension it could refer to all Singaporeans. Out of the sea ties into the way Singapore is linked to the sea for its economic prosperity. The word "riding" gives the impression of the merlion's skill and mastery over its aquatic element. And waves of fish in your fists gives the impression of the merlion's gigantic size. As you can see from the photos, this is a person cleaning the statue of the merlion. So mythologically and also in its physical statue form now, it is absolutely huge. So waves of fish in your fists gives the impression of the merlion's gigantic size. The poem continues, "Washed up, your gills snapped shut, water whipped the first breath of your lungs, your lips bud teased by morning mists." Grills snapped shut. In this line, the merlion seems to be adapting to land. The combination of the sibilants, snapped shut, with the hard consonant sounds create the sound of a sudden, violent process. The phrase "water whipped" is of course alliteration. The repetition of the W emphasizes whipped, which has connotations of something sudden. The word "lips" adds to the growing impression that the merlion is adapting to life on land. The use of personification here creates a sense of appeal. The poem continues, "You conquered the shore, its ivory coast. Your legs are still rocked with the memory of waves. Sinews of sand ran across your back." The word "conquered" is of course carefully chosen by Chong, because the verb has connotations of defeating and dominating the foe. The merlion, presumably a marine animal, has gained victory over the land. Ivory coast is an interesting phrase because ivory is an expensive material. It represents the wealth and the opulence the natural resources offer. And sinews of sand, the sibilance here mimics the sound of sand slipping down the merlion's back. The poem continues, "Rising runes of your oceanic origins, your heart thumped an animal skin drum, heralding the coming of a prince." Now the words "rising runes" are worth noting because the word "rune" means mystery or secret in old Germanic languages. This could indicate the merlion's rising was a mystery. We just know that he came out of the ocean, he has oceanic origins. Now, the alliteration here reminds us of how the merlion is tied to the sea, just as the success of Singapore is tied to the sea. Now, the last two lines, "an animal skin drum heralding the coming of a prince." The merlion's heartbeat beckons others to join him and announces the arrival of a prince who, according to the Malay annals, founded the city after a strange beast when he landed there, later to be called Singapore or Lion City. The poem continues, in the jungle, amid rasping branches, trees loosened their shadows to shroud you. The prince beheld you then, a golden sheen. Rasping branches indicate something unpleasant and dirty. But this phrase here, the trees loosened their shadows to shroud you, it seems that even the flora respond to the need of the merlion. Being shrouded in the shadows adds a mystery to the merlion. Finally, the prince and golden sheen. The word golden conveys a sense of appeal and value to the merlion. This indicates the merlion has transformed, maybe waiting to reveal its true glory. The poem continues, your eyes, two flickers, emerald blaze, you settled back on fluent haunches, the squall of a beast, your roar, your call. The phrase settled back indicates the merlion has settled in the place that will become Singapore. Emerald blaze indicate that there is a great worth in the merlion's gaze. Squall of a beast. We know that a squall is a sudden, localized storm, often at sea, but also a cry out. It indicates that there is some sense of power in the merlion. His roar, his call, symbolizes the voice of all Singaporeans. The roar of the merlion symbolizes all of their voices, all of their calls. The poem continues, in crackling boats, seeds arrived, wind blown, you summoned their colors to the palm of your hand, folded them snugly into loam. Seeds arrived, wind blown, emphasizes the way boats and the sea have a lot of importance to Singapore's success. Some of their colors reflects the merlion's power to command the colors, which might refer to the colors of the ships. And finally, loam is a fertile soil of clay and sand, symbolizing the fertility of Singapore. It's not barren, it's fertile land, which can only lead to more success. The poem continues, watched saplings swaddled in green as they sunk roots, spawned shade and embraced the land that embraced them. Saplings swaddled, saplings are young plants. To swaddle refers to wrapping a baby for comfort and protection. The image here is of a new plant and its growth, which is of course Singapore. Sunk roots and spawned shade, of course, is an example of sibilance. It creates a soothing effect in these lines and indicates the process of humans settling on the land. And finally, the phrase embraced them creates an image of crops thriving and becoming part of the land, sustaining the people who are claiming the land as their own. The poem continues, their ankles lost in swilling water as they heaved themselves higher above the mirrored surface. Ankles lost in swilling water. The city which rises out of the sea remains rooted in the sea. The verb heave indicates a tremendous effort which was required to develop the modern city. Mirrored surface indicates that there is an inseparable, symbiotic nature of the city and the sea. Each is reflected in the other. Then the poem reads, remember yourself, your raw lion heart, each beat a stony echo that washes through ribbed vaults of buildings. The imperative remember is an imperative for all Singaporeans to remember their shared history. The connection to their history, culture and tradition forms the beating heart of Singapore, which is contained in the buildings the way a heart is contained and protected by a rib cage. Raw lion heart refers to all Singaporeans, stating that all Singaporeans have qualities of pride and bravery that can never be tamed. These qualities are raw. The poem continues, remember your keris, iron lightning, ripping through tentacles of waves, double-edged, curved to a point flung. Our keris is an asymmetrical dagger, which is a symbol for Malayan culture and craftsmanship. Iron lightning is a strong visual image linking the keris to natural forces. And ripping through tentacles of waves is a violent image of the city emerging from the sea through the efforts of the people. High and court unsheathed, scattering 5 stars in the red tapestry of your sky. This image here indicates that the flag of Singapore is coloured with spattered blood. The efforts of the people becomes a pledge of allegiance to the state. And that is how the poem ends.